What if the single most dangerous idea in philosophy was not hidden in some dusty book, but already sitting quietly in your mind, waiting to erupt? Imagine discovering, in one instant, that everything you've been taught about reality, morality, and even who you are could be an elaborate story. No warning, no safety net, just the sudden realization that the ground beneath you isn't solid at all. Would you dare to keep listening? Because once you hear this idea, you can't unhear it. And the truth is, it could change everything. We like to believe that the world is stable, that meaning is fixed, that identity rests on something permanent. This belief is comforting, but it's also fragile. Crack it once, and the entire structure trembles. The idea we're about to explore is not a harmless thought experiment. It's a live wire. It has been feared, censored, and misunderstood precisely because it threatens the foundations of how humans live together. And yet, the moment you truly see it, you also unlock a level of freedom and authenticity most people never reach. So what is this dangerous idea? In its rawest form, it's the realization that meaning is not built into the world. Nothing carries fixed meaning on its own. Meaning is not a property of objects or events, but a projection of consciousness. This is the beating heart behind existentialism, nihilism, and even some of the deepest mystical traditions. Friedrich Nietzsche called it the death of God, the collapse of absolute values. Jean-Paul Sartre called it radical freedom, the terrifying discovery that no script is written for you. Eastern philosophies echo it when they call the world of forms Maya, illusion. Different languages, same shock. Reality doesn't come preloaded with meaning. You give it meaning, or no one does. Why is this idea so dangerous? Because once you really see it, you can't retreat into comforting illusions. The labels you've used to define yourself, career, nationality, beliefs, morality, lose their automatic authority. The world shifts from being a fixed stage where you play a role to an open field where nothing is guaranteed. For some, that feels like free fall. For others, it's the first breath of true freedom. Think about your own daily life. Every morning, you wake up inside a web of meanings. Your alarm clock signals morning. Your clothes signal professional or casual. Your job is important, and your relationships are yours. But these aren't properties of the objects themselves. They're interpretations, agreements, and cultural codes. When someone breaks those codes, they seem eccentric or even insane. Yet the codes are arbitrary. They're stories, and stories can change. Nietzsche saw this before most. When he declared God is dead, he wasn't celebrating atheism. He was announcing a crisis. Without a transcendent anchor for values, humans face the abyss. Who decides what's good or evil? What stops the slide into chaos? The most dangerous idea is not just that values are subjective, but that we are responsible for creating them. Radical freedom is radical responsibility. Jean-Paul Sartre took this further. He wrote that man is condemned to be free. Condemned because there's no escape. Even refusing to choose is a choice. Even living by tradition is a choice. You can't hand over your freedom to someone else without first deciding to. That's the unbearable weight of freedom. It's also the birth of authentic living. When there's no pre-written meaning, you become the author of your life. But if the world is meaningless, why do we feel meaning so strongly? Why do love, beauty, and purpose feel real? Here's the paradox. Meaning isn't out there, but it's deeply real in here. Consciousness is a meaning-making force. When you love someone, that meaning is no less true because it's not absolute. When you dedicate yourself to a craft, that purpose is no less profound because it's chosen. In fact, chosen meaning can be more powerful than inherited meaning because it's alive, not automatic. This is where the dangerous idea begins to transform from despair to empowerment. If nothing has inherent meaning, then you are free to create meaning. If no path is preordained, then your path is truly yours. Instead of clinging to borrowed beliefs, you can ask, what do I choose to stand for? What values do I create, knowing they're mine? This is terrifying because it removes excuses, but it's also exhilarating because it removes limits. Philosophy calls this move authenticity. Not authenticity as in being yourself in a superficial way, but authenticity as in living from the ground up, aware of the void, and choosing anyway. Albert Camus captured this spirit in his image of Sisyphus, condemned to roll a boulder uphill forever. He imagined Sisyphus happy, not because the universe gave him meaning, but because he gave meaning to his struggle. In a world without inherent purpose, defiance becomes creation. You can see why societies often resist this idea. It undermines authority. It weakens the hold of dogma. If meaning is not inherent, then no institution has an absolute claim on your obedience. Morality becomes a dialogue, not a decree. Power built on unexamined beliefs starts to crumble. That's why the idea is dangerous not only to individuals, but to systems. Yet suppressing it doesn't make it go away. The cracks in certainty are always there, waiting. This dangerous idea also shows up in spiritual traditions, but in a different tone. Buddhism teaches impermanence and emptiness, not as despair, but as liberation from clinging. The self you think you are is not fixed. The world you think is solid is fluid. Seeing this clearly can lead to compassion and equanimity rather than nihilism. Because if everything is interdependent and transient, then control and ego lose their grip. What remains is presence. Notice how both the existential and the mystical converge. They both start by stripping away illusions. They both confront you with the void. And then they both point to a freedom deeper than comfort. The freedom to be, to act, to love without guarantees. This is why the most dangerous idea might also be the most necessary. Without it, we live as prisoners of inherited meaning. With it, we stand in the open, vulnerable, but awake. We've been circling this idea conceptually, but its real impact is experiential. It's one thing to nod at the thought, nothing has inherent meaning. It's another to wake up at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of it. It's another to look at your life and see how much of it is built on assumptions you never chose. This confrontation is not comfortable. It's an existential earthquake. Yet like all earthquakes, it can clear the ground for something new. Once the earthquake hits, you have two main choices. You can run back to the ruins of old meanings, try to rebuild them exactly as they were. Or you can clear the rubble and build something new. The first choice feels safer. The second choice is freedom. Most people, when confronted with the void, rush back to borrowed certainties. They double down on ideology, cling to identities, or drown out the silence with distraction. But those who stay with the discomfort long enough discover a deeper power, the ability to create meaning consciously. This is why the most dangerous idea in philosophy is also a test of courage. It's one thing to discuss in a classroom. It's another to live it. To live means taking full responsibility for your life without excuses, without guarantees, without a script. It means admitting that no tradition, no leader, and no system can tell you who to be. It also means discovering that you are far stronger and more creative than you imagined. Look at the lives of people who embrace this idea. They often appear unconventional, even rebellious, but there's a glow about them. They're not necessarily famous philosophers. They can be artists, scientists, spiritual seekers, or everyday people who stopped waiting for permission to live authentically. They carry a quiet authority. They radiate a kind of silent power because they're not acting out someone else's script. They're living a story they've chosen. This is the paradox of the dangerous idea. At first, it feels like loss of certainty, loss of inherited meaning, loss of external guidance. But on the other side of that loss is gain. Gain of freedom, gain of authenticity, gain of self-trust. You stop playing roles to please invisible judges. You stop needing your life to fit a formula. And that's when a deeper sense of meaning often arises, one that's more resilient because you're not trying to protect an illusion. Camus wrote that the only serious philosophical question is whether life is worth living. His answer was yes, not because life has inherent meaning, but because we can rebel against meaninglessness by creating our own purposes. This rebellion is not rage, but creativity. It's the decision to engage fully with existence, even when it offers no guarantees. In that decision, life stops being a problem to solve and becomes an experience to shape. Think about the small ways you can practice this today. Notice where you're living by someone else's script, career choices, relationships, beliefs. Ask yourself, is this truly mine, or did I inherit it? What would it look like to choose consciously, even if that choice looks similar on the surface? The difference between automatic living and conscious living is invisible from the outside, but transformative on the inside. You start to feel aligned, less like an actor in a play and more like the playwright. This shift also changes how you relate to others. When you realize that meaning is co-created rather than imposed, you become more compassionate. You stop expecting people to fit into your frameworks. You see their freedom and their struggle. Dialogue replace dogma. Connection deepens because you're meeting others in their chosen humanity, not just their roles. The dangerous idea, when lived wisely, doesn't isolate you. It can actually make you more empathetic and more courageous in relationships. Spiritual traditions frame this as awakening. Not an escape from life, but an awakening to its fluidity. You realize that clinging to fixed forms, your own or others, creates suffering. Letting go doesn't mean nihilism. It means openness. It means being present enough to see life as it is, and creative enough to respond authentically. That's a radical act of love in a world addicted to certainty. Of course, there will be moments of doubt. There will be nights when the freedom feels too heavy, when you wish someone would just hand you a map. In those moments, remember, feeling lost is not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're waking up. The old map is gone because you're in new territory, the territory of your own life. You're building a compass, not following a GPS. And this is where the dangerous idea reveals its ultimate gift. By stripping away illusions, it leaves you with what cannot be stripped. Your capacity to choose, to love, to create, to stand in the unknown and still move forward. That's why so many philosophers, after wrestling with meaninglessness, arrive at a kind of luminous courage. They discover that even without guarantees, existence is precious. Even without inherent purpose, life can be deeply worth living. You can start small. Choose one area of your life where you've been on autopilot. Ask what value you want to bring there, consciously. Notice how it feels to live that choice. Over time, these small acts of authorship accumulate into a life that feels real, even in its impermanence. You'll find that you don't need external validation as much. You'll radiate a quiet confidence, a silent power, because you know you're living from the inside out. The most dangerous idea in philosophy is dangerous only if misunderstood. Taken as a license for despair, it corrodes. Taken as an invitation to freedom, it transforms. The difference lies in whether you see the void as a tomb or as fertile soil. Fertile soil is dark, but it's where seeds grow. In the dark of uncertainty, your most authentic values can take root. Now I'd like to hear from you. When you confront the idea that nothing has inherent meaning, what happens inside you? Does it feel liberating, frightening, or both? How do you personally create meaning in your life? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read them, and they help shape future videos. Remember this as you go forward. The ground may not be solid, but that means you're free to walk anywhere. The script may not be written, but that means you're free to write it. Don't fear the dangerous idea. Use it. Let it sharpen your awareness, deepen your compassion, and ignite your creativity. And if this video has sparked something in you, give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you can keep exploring these powerful ideas with us. The journey is just beginning, and it's yours to shape.